I'm Dave. My first experience of being made redundant was many years ago, but 6 years ago, the result of having the change and being made redundant is I set myself up as being freelance, and I've worked since. And DLC is a chance to share some of my ideas, some of my experiences, and most importantly, how to learn to do it for next time. This is a cycle that keeps repeating, I find. Change, it doesn't just happen once.
I mean, Dave, what about yourself, really?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed my work. I put a lot into it, and I've always enjoyed working with communities, creating community change, working with adults and children and young people, and helping them grow, helping them survive, helping them cope. But having loved it and having put my heart into it, I was working in a situation which seemed to stifle that. With local authorities, if you seem to be a high flyer, if you seem to be a person that writes things for journals, you find that your managers and your colleagues, little jealousies creep in. And if you put your heart in it, you get drained. You're very, very vulnerable. The more you give of yourself, the more you're emptied. And if someone decides to have a go at you, finds out you've not done that right, but you've not done this right. I allowed one member of staff to take protracted leave because her husband was dying. I got disciplined for that.
Unbelievable.
And there's things like that you cannot help it, but the bits of bullying make you feel devalued. And when it comes to things like redundancy and finding you no longer have a job, that's the ultimate in many ways in saying all you've ever done really isn't worth anything.
That's right.
So all the time I was working, I did things on the side for my sanity. So I did art projects, I did performances. I talked a lot, I went to conferences, and again, with the sense of being able to perform, it's a bit like you take on a mask and someone else. That kept me going. In some way, if I'd been a bit more ambitious and learned to be a bit more of a bastard at work, I might have survived a bit better. But in the process of going, much as I said before, the whole thing is the things you're good at are because you're good at it, not that you're necessarily qualified. And if you want to teach, you want to share, sometimes you need to have taken a step back. The fact you've been doing it sometimes doesn't help you.
No.
You're thinking of, this is my battle. It doesn't help you teach in a sort of more general way. So having been drained by the experience of putting your life into your work, having been further drained by having lost your work, you think, what have I got to offer? That was difficult. So I'd always done some things which were inspections of other authorities. That was great because I had one thing out of all the bits I had done, probably 1 week's work every 3 months. So I could perhaps market that. Turns out I couldn't. But in the process, and also reflecting all the things I enjoyed, and sharing music and getting involved with music activities with communities, not just in this country, didn't give me enough to live on, but it gave me a bit of sanity, something to build from. But I'm still finding, much as I was balancing the work I liked with people I hated working with, and situations and structures I hated working with, balancing that with the arts work, I still haven't got the balance right.
Well, it's plenty more years yet.
Yeah, but free time, I'm actually hankering for a bit of discipline and working for an organisation and working 9 to 5. It's amazing.
Careful what you wish for. Huh?
Yeah, that routine, though, it does give you a bit of stability and draws you away from spending so much time on Facebook.
And that's one of the problems as well. When people are in a 9 to 5 job, it's so structured. When things do go bad, they find it impossible to break away and start on their own again, because you're used to the money coming in every month. You're used to, when you start work, you drive to work. When you finish, when you take your holidays, actually doing something on your own again is starting all over again, and your day schedule could be completely different. You could be working in the evenings, weekends. It's a complete foreign thing to many people after many years, isn't it, Keith?
So all the trigger points we've recognised that have caused the change, and all the welter of feelings that we've had now, all the feelings of whether we can cope, whether we've got the means to cope, so it brings us around naturally to the next stage.
I think it links nicely to what Dave was about. I
was going to say, all of our experiences were of taking responsibility for things, being in charge of something, and learning to work alone. And finding you've got other people in the same boat it's hard.
Yes.
And I found that I had opportunities. So my next thing to do was to find lots of varieties of things to do. And that includes lots of things perhaps I shouldn't have done. Because sometimes if you concentrate on one thing, you build up the expertise and the reputation for it.
Yes, I think the management text would call it portfolio working, Dave. You build up, you have a lot of things in your bag of tricks, as it were, to offer. You know.
But I was involved in making articles and programs and recordings of Catalan bagpipes, telling stories in schools, inspecting work with older learners, and inspecting work in children's centres. It wasn't coherent or consistent.
No.
Things I enjoyed, but I really had to find people I could talk to,
Yes.
and who were to some extent in the same boat.
Yeah.
And of course, they're out there. That's the whole point. There are people who have similar experiences right across different countries, different situations. And that's
But I found partial bits. I found 3 other people involved in Catalan bagpipes,
Yeah.
which is a bit extreme.
Well, there's only 4, isn't there?
They meet you in the telephone box. Then, you know?
And apples and orchards and trees.
Yeah.
So some voluntary activities as well,
Yeah.
to make me think I was doing something physical.
And that's really important. You mentioned the voluntary activity, isn't it? That we did say earlier, it's not all about having to. You've got to pay the bills, but sometimes the skills that people have over life can be passed on. Be they life experience skills or whatever, and often that's best done by volunteering. And I mean, I know a lot of people find that very satisfying. You know, it's very fulfilling that you're giving something back.
It's nice if you've had experiences of problems at work,
Yes,
where trade unions weren't strong enough to stand up for you,
Yeah.
to be able to offer something back
Yeah.
to other
that's a
people.
good example. Yeah, that's right.
And I think some of the times this is a way of doing it. More often is you'll still be alive after the other person's lost their job. And it's survival or endurance, which is probably
Absolutely.
more important than success sometimes.
Sure.
I found I had an opportunity to do more music. But like Jeff, I've seen myself as someone who enjoys it rather than always produces it, though I do play the bagpipes, I've got to say.
Ah,
But
well,
the-
that's about
on his
enjoyment,
own-
Dave.
on
The
his
thing
own.
is, I found that if I was sharing my enjoyment of it with musicians or with a radio audience, I was actually doing something quite positive.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more that a musician needs than a good ear to appreciate them. And some of the things I was giving back. So again, some of the things I found helpful is actually listening to people in all sorts of different ways. And not being arrogant and not having to be the performer, but sometimes being the person that helps other perform.
Yeah.
That's been very valuable to me, and I think that's also valuable to other people in a similar situation. If you find there's something you can do that's directed towards other people, it gives you back that sense of worth,
That's
that you
right.
can
Yeah.
do something, which is something you've lost.
That's right.
And it gets you out of the inertia. It means you've got something, you might just be doing it for enjoyment, you might be doing it because you're learning from it, but at least you're doing it and you're not sitting back.